Most of us, at some point, have been asked to lend money by someone. And in such situations, we have asked ourselves a question that is quite natural for a sensible person: is it worth lending money? If you have never asked yourself this question, then either you never lend money to anyone, or you have always had debts repaid. But in most cases, when lending money, we must understand that we will most likely face certain problems associated with its return, which we do not need at all. It is not for nothing that people say that when we lend money, we acquire in the person of the debtor not so much a friend as an enemy. Why? Because people are mostly very greedy, cynical, and avaricious creatures, and therefore, having taken money from you, they will not want to return it to you. And yet, I think it is worth helping other people with money, lending it to them from time to time. But it is necessary to help only some people and only in exceptional situations. It is believed that money spoils people, because it allows them to show all their rotten insides, and by the way, we all have them. Yes, as soon as a base person gets his hands on insignificant power, and money can give it, he immediately becomes what he always was, but carefully hid it. So money does not spoil people, money exposes people. Nevertheless, there are sufficiently intellectually and spiritually developed people who cannot be spoiled by money. I assure you of this. True, there are very few such people. Well, for example, your faithful servant, the author of this site, did not become a bad person because of money. He treated people like humans, and continues to do so. But that, you understand, to people, and not to, you know who. Treating bad people well is stupid. Therefore, helping other people with money should be done very carefully. Lending money is a delicate surgical operation, in which it is important for us not to touch the rotten insides of a person with the money we lend him. I assure you that there are people who know money will spoil. I personally know such people. They are very rich and at the same time, they can be called almost saints. But this is a rarity in our time, and the likelihood that you will lend money to such a highly developed person is extremely small. Even if you think you know well the person to whom you are going to lend. It would be great if you and I were surrounded by only reasonable people with whom we could do business. Then we wouldn't need laws. However, most people, to our great regret, behave very disgustingly when their financial situation improves significantly or when they start to come into too close contact with money. Therefore, having lent money, you risk facing an extremely negative reaction from the person to whom you lent it. This reaction will be due to the parasitic nature of man. This is when they start climbing on your neck if you helped someone. Well, what did you expect? In this life every good deed is perceived by people as a manifestation of weakness, and this, in turn, for a savage, is a signal to attack a weak person. Today you helped a person, tomorrow you helped him, the day after tomorrow you helped him, and then look, and he already makes claims to you, says that you owe him. That's it, the parasite has attached itself and fed itself. And now tearing it off your neck will not be easy from a moral point of view, because it will squeal like a slaughtered pig. If you don't want to deal with this phenomenon, don't help anyone with anything. And if you want to help someone and lend them money, then be prepared for the fact that they won't return it to you. Yes, and what did you think? Do you think people are all so holy? Do you think they are good only because they don't do bad things? Nothing of the sort. Many people seem good only because they don't have the opportunity to do everything they want to do, and as soon as they have it, then you will be very surprised by the behavior of a supposedly good person whom you have known all your life. To get to know a person, you need to test him with circumstances, when, as they say, in joy and in sorrow, he shows himself as he is. Therefore, if you think that some very good-looking person will not do anything bad, because he is not capable of it, then you are very much mistaken. And if you lend money to some saint, it does not mean that he is guaranteed to return it to you. So get ready, I warn you, get ready to part with your money once and for all, if you lend it. Do not seek understanding from the one who grabbed your property and forgot about you. After all, if a person himself, of his own free will, does not want to return the money he borrowed from you, then we can say with complete confidence that he is shit by nature. People, as we know, remember other people's debts very well, while they very quickly forget about their own debts. You simply must know this truth if you are going to lend money to someone. And if you are screwed, you must be morally prepared for this, because otherwise, you will torture yourself. If you get nervous because they don't return your money, if you try to shout at your debtor, then you will lose not only money, but also years of your life. Do you need it? Think about the money that is not being returned. Is it so important? You will still earn it, but the years of life that you lost because of your nerves will never be returned. It is not necessary that everything will develop exactly according to this negative scenario. It is not necessary that they will not return your money and say thank you. I just urge you to prepare for the worst, so as not to fall into a stupor later if everything turns out differently than you wanted. Many people lend money and do not regret it, although to tell the truth, I think this is wrong. People should be helped first of all with advice, knowledge, wise instructions, and not with money. But since many people are not able to perceive any advice, then you have to help them with money, which can solve many different problems for a while. By the way, if someone has problems with money, and he constantly gets into debt to solve these problems, rest assured that no money will help such a person. Until he sorts out his head, he will balance at the level of survival all his life, even with good money. Most problems in a person's life are connected with his inability to respond to these problems competently, and not with his lack of money. Think for yourself, what is the use of money if there is no head on the shoulders? Then you will not hold any wealth in your hands. Why am I saying that lending money is worth it? From my point of view, maybe not to everyone and not always, but still worth it. The thing is, friends, that I myself, when I was still a child, went through such difficult trials, when outside help, both money and food, was simply necessary for our family to survive. What can you do? My parents were never smart enough, which affected their financial situation. But at the same time, my parents always paid their debts, no matter how hard it was for them. And nevertheless, this is not life, when you are constantly covered in debt. It is difficult for me to say how we would have been able to survive at all if we had not gotten into debt, because you can die of hunger, or be left homeless. But kind people helped us with money, lending it to my parents, who somehow managed and somehow miraculously got out of it. Yes, the collective farm peasant upbringing, in which people bow to every lamppost, because they are very ignorant, does not contribute to success in life at all. Bast shoemakers can only bow to the master's feet, but it is difficult for them to move their brains, because they are not accustomed to it. So debts in our life are a very common thing, somehow many of us have not yet learned not to get into them. So, as you can see, people are people, and most of them can help each other in difficult times, and they do help. This means that we can all count on someone to lend us money when we need it. Whether it is worth lending money or not, I think, is more of a personal, intimate, if you like, question than a public one. It all depends on your life experience, which is different for everyone. Some people live only for themselves and never help anyone in any way, others are more responsive to requests for help, and others hate people altogether. In fact, a lot is affected by a person's outlook on life, and their life experience, and their personal beliefs, and their ability or inability to find a common language with people. We are not so different, because our lives are the same. But one thing is for sure, a person asking for money on loan will be best understood by someone who has been in his situation and was also forced to borrow money at some point. Therefore, no one else will help us except ourselves. In general, you need to understand people to know who and how to help. For example, you see a person who, although a fool, is still a person, and not some kind of bastard. You see that he asks you to lend him money for a really necessary cause, and not for some nonsense. Just take and think in such a situation, can you give him your money or not? Of course, you don't need to lend money to any stinking drunkard who hangs around near stores, bus stops, and other similar places. What kind of problems does he have there? Does the engine stop or does he die without a hangover? You shouldn't worry. He'll die, and that's good, it will only be for the better, the world will become cleaner from this scum. But if a single mother, or some kind of no-good family, urgently needs money and asks you for it, then I think you can help in principle. But you know how it can look like, as a contribution to the future of our society, in which you yourself will not suffer much financially. Your decision should be based on your full understanding of what and why you are doing. I would not lend money to anyone now, I tell you honestly. That's it, I've had enough. I've already helped enough everyone who is looking for a solution to their problems in other people's money. I do not regret all the money I lost, which I once lent to someone and which was not returned to me, but I do not intend to lose it anymore on good deeds, so do not get your lip rolling on my account. Let's say this, I paid my debt to those who helped me, and my family survive in difficult times. It was a debt of conscience, the debt of a person who experienced all the delights of a poor life on his own skin. You can rely on your own convictions and your own life experience. No one will judge you for your decision to lend or not to lend money. Here, in this article, we are simply discussing the meaning and necessity of lending your money to someone, and analyzing the experience of other people in similar situations to understand how it generally happens in our lives, with all these debts. And there are no prescriptions, rules, laws telling you how to act correctly, when to act correctly, why to act correctly. In fact, there are not and cannot be. You do not owe anything to anyone, you are free to act as you see fit, according to your interests. All these commandments of God, as you understand, are nonsense invented by other people, with which they brainwash us, and all responsibility for your decisions lies with you and only with you. You are your own judge. Whether you want to lend money to people or not, don't lend it to them. I assure you that any decision you make will be right. But it will only be right if you take into account the consequences that your decision may lead to. I have already told you that many people, having received money from you, may start to hate you just because they owe you. I also told you that some people quickly get used to solving their problems at the expense of other people's money, and if you feed some parasite with your money, then it will be difficult for you to get rid of him later. And don't forget that a debt must be repaid, unless you intend to do charity. And this payment may simply not exist. Some people do not know about such a concept as conscience, and it is pointless to call them to it. I tell you this responsibly, people can screw you over for no reason, and you will not see any money. Be prepared for this, mentally prepared. For many people, given their low level of development, money is the most important value in this life. They are ready to tear anyone's throat for them, sell their ass to anyone, quarrel with anyone over money. That's what kind of animals people can be. And if you give such a person some lousy 100, then he will cling to it as to a sinful soul, and will shake with greed, not letting go of this piece of paper. What do you want from such creatures when you give them money? And don't tell me that you expect decency, honesty, and responsibility from them. I won't say anything about money on a receipt and about interest now, because if you are not going to make money by lending people money on interest, you don't need to think about all this. Why do you need a receipt from a person you decided to help? If you doubt his integrity, just don't give him money, that's all. Why get on your nerves later with lawsuits and other matters? Why waste your precious time on this, when you can just immediately decide whether you will do business with this or that person or not? And don't tell me that you can't say no to people when they ask you for something. Let's do without all this snot. If you don't want to lend money to a person, don't do it. Period. There should be no explanations why you don't want to do it. No, that's all. It's your right. And the conversation is over.